Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the channel and the podcast. Today, Sal Vetri, myself here, going to break down the NFL Thursday Night Football Showdown slate. You got a couple $100,000 to first. It is between the Dallas Cowboys and the Chicago Bears. We're starting off a lot of what should be, if you're in a good fantasy football season-long league, your season-long leagues. But if you're not in the playoffs, well, your season-long playoffs is what I should say. If you're not in the playoffs, well, why not play some Showdown on Sunday? Before we get into this, if you are new here, welcome to my channel and podcast. Please do hit the subscribe button if you get any value, or you've been here before and for some reason you're still not subscribed. I urge you to hit the subscribe button on the YouTube channel, on the podcast. Leave a 5-star rate and review over on the podcast. Helps me out the most. And also, let me know down below, who is your sleeper play for this Showdown slate? On my Friday Final Thoughts NFL video, I will announce a winner from all these comments. You must be subscribed to the YouTube channel and or the podcast. And you have to leave, even in the reviews on the podcast, your Twitter handle or a PayPal so I can give you $25 if you were the person randomly selected for entering into the contest. Again, you have to link up down below or really just leave a comment. Who is your sleeper play of the day? Let's go with somebody below the $6,000 range. Who below the $6,000 range? Actually, you know what? Let's get creative with it. Who below the $4,000 range is somebody who you think is a sleeper on this slate? Let me know that down below. Also linked up down below in the description. You can hit show more if you're on your phone. My Patreon exclusive content will have tiers for this Showdown slate, but also having content every single day for the NBA, NBA projections, as well as the NFL every single day podcast, live streams, projections, lots of stuff over there on Patreon. Check that out. Check out my social medias. I release some teasers and free content that only my Instagram following knows about over on Instagram, Sal Vetri, and Twitter, Sal at SalVetriDFS. Today's sponsor of the show, really want to thank them. Once again, going to be partners and sponsoring it up on some of these videos is Drafters.com. So Drafters is a online snake draft format. It is daily fantasy based, and instead of doing your season-long league like you do in the beginning of the year, you can do that same format in a little snake draft, an accelerated snake draft, if you will, not as long of a process as those hour and a half drafts, and you can do it for every single week. So I urge you to check it out. We're going to have some live streams where I take some Q&As for the week, but also for NBA and NFL. We go through some Drafters drafts. People watching can get in there, but also they have an exclusive offer for my listeners and for my viewers on the YouTube channel, Sal 100. So what Sal 100 gets you is a 100% deposit bonus up to $50. Honestly, this is one of the better ones you'll find in the industry, one of the best ones I've found in the industry. Usually you get like a 20% deposit bonus. If you put $20 in, they're going to give you an extra $20. So your $20 turns into 40 Drafters dollars, so your $50 turns into 100. So be sure to check that out. I'll link up the promo code down below, but if you go over to Drafters and you type in Sal, S-A-L, 100, you can get an extra 100%, not 50%, not 20%, 100% deposit bonus. It's worth checking out for online snake drafts. I like it. We're going to be doing some listener leagues as well for throughout the rest of the NFL and into the NBA season. Let's get into this video, everybody. Like button, subscribe button. Again, enter the contest down below. Comment who is your favorite value below $5,000 in this slate. So on this slate, I currently have written up here notes for 23 people. Out of these 23 people, 14 are making a player pool. If you're only entering a few lineups, surely enter more in there or get more people into your player pool, maybe 16, 17, get both defenses in there, maybe an extra player or two who might rely on a touchdown, which we'll talk on if you're only entering or if you're entering more than just a few lineups. Otherwise, follow what I have here, or at least I recommend following what I have here. This is the research I've done, how I feel about the slate. I have 4 yeses on this slate out of my player pool of 14. 4 people make the yes column, leading it off with Ezekiel Elliott, 11,200. I'm the guy who loves to fade running backs that are 10,000, 11,000 plus on showdowns and going to be 70+% owned, as I imagine Zeke will be. But it's really hard for me not to want to play Zeke based on the role that he has. Now, Zeke was faded last year in a Showdown slate where he was about 80% owned and he wasn't needed, and you won. And you can do that if your risk tolerance is, I don't care if I lose my $50, $10, $100, $200 that I'm playing tonight, $1,000. If you want to fade Zeke or come in well below the field, fading just means not having as much of the field. 100% fade means having 0% of Zeke in your lineups. I'm totally fine with that. It's up to the individual player. Personally, me, if he's going to come in around 80% owned, I'll probably have Zeke in about 80% of lineups based on this matchup. He has a positive 12% run blocking advantage, so 12% higher than normal as a matchup. This is a beneficial matchup for Zeke. That means he's averaging 34.5 routes per run per week over the last month, a lot because his secondary of Dallas is struggling, and you're going to have to get Dak throwing more, which means Zeke's running routes, a lot more routes. But even during that time, it's not like he's losing touches because they're throwing more and he's not seeing as much involvement in the passing game. He's seeing 21 total touches per week over the last month of the season. Just a really big workload. You can project Zeke here for 20 plus touches, a lot of activity, leading the entire league in red zone rush attempts, running 30 plus routes a week. It's just a really good role overall. Allen Robinson at 9,600. He's likely to face Awuzie, who's been the better cornerback over Byron Jones over the last 6 weeks of the year. They've both been pretty solid, although the secondary in the safeties has been a little bit worse. And then just in terms of limiting big plays has not been all that great. But in terms of man-to-man coverage, been better. Zone coverage, not as much. But a man-to-man coverage will still be a beneficial matchup for Allen Robinson just due to his skill set. He's priced up to where it makes it difficult to want to get to him. 9,600, like, I want to get to him, but you have to prioritize those lineups. If you want to play Zeke and a quarterback, you're probably not getting to Allen Robinson all that much, unless you're putting a really cheap person in the captain, which rarely works out. So I think Allen Robinson at 9,600 is fine. You probably just have to sacrifice Zeke or there's a quarterback in one of those lineups, but I think it's worth prioritizing in some lineups. Michael Gallup, only 8,200. I continue to go back to the Michael Gallup fountain right now because, look, 44 routes per week. This guy's not leaving the field. You have Dak Prescott so far over the last month of the season averaging 44 attempts per week. Yeah, he's running a route on every single one of those pretty much. Michael Gallup averaging right around 44 routes per week. He's just not leaving the field. He's staying healthy over the last month, and he just has so much opportunity when that happens. He's likely to face Prince Amukamara, who over the last 6 games has been slightly below average. 19 receptions allowed in man coverage, 262 yards and 2 touchdowns allowed. So right around an average to below average cornerback, and you're getting a very good wide receiver this year. A second-year breakout outside of the 1 to 2 weeks that he was hurt, or 3 weeks I think it was beginning of the year. 8,200 is too cheap of a price tag, especially when you consider that Amari Cooper has been banged up for the better part of the last month. Anthony Miller at $7,000. Taylor Gabriel still in the concussion protocol, as well as a backup tight end for the Ben Braunector for the Bears as well, both in the concussion protocol. Let's just assume that Gabriel does not play. Anthony Miller at $7,000. The price point might seem steep, but it's nice. 42 routes run last week led the team. If Anthony Miller or if Taylor Gabriel sits, he is a yes for me on this slate. He's likely to see Jordan Lewis in the slot a lot, which Lewis had been doing very well since he took over the job about 2 months ago, until last week where Cole Beasley revenge narrative got him for 100 plus and a touchdown. All of that was not on Lewis. Some of it was in coverage or zone coverage. So Lewis has still been solid. Outside of that big performance by Beasley on Turkey Day. Anthony Miller, though, if he's going to run 35 plus routes at $7,000 in a beneficial matchup, I don't really trust Mitch Trubisky all that much, especially this week with the pass rush he's going to have to face. So Miller is like a very fringy yes for me. I might actually move Miller to a maybe. Lots of question marks. So let's move him to a maybe as we do this, just because lots of question marks around if Gabriel plays. If Ben Braunector plays, he'll run 30 routes in the middle of the field as well. I do like Miller's price tag. I'll be having some of him, but putting him on the same level as an Allen Robinson, Michael Gallup, and Zeke as my interest, he's just not there yet. So Miller is still fine. Now my maybes. Dak Prescott at 10,800. He leads the league. He's still leading in all these efficiency stats like DR. Dallas secondary is leading to more scripts where Dak just has to throw 40 plus times because their defense can't stop people. 43.5 attempts per game over the last 4. He has a positive 22% pass protection in this game, and that's with Khalil Mack being on the other side of this. That's how bad the rest of the Bears defensive line has been at generating pressure, but not even how bad really they've been. They've been pretty solid. It's just how good this Dallas offensive line is. It speaks volumes to that. He has a 22% better than average for the rest of the league advantage this week in terms of how much time he'll have in the pocket. You do like to see that. Cold weather is really no issue for Dak too. This game being in Chicago at night, Dak has performed pretty fine in cold weather games. It's just, it's not a spot that he's too expensive to fade him, and he has rushing upside on the ground, so 10,800 is fine for Dak. Amari at 9,400, look, I have major concerns about Amari's ankle and knee. It seems every single game he's leaving or playing limited, and has already been quoted in an interview saying that he doesn't feel like himself. He has 22 receptions for 270 yards over the last month of the year. So those numbers they're okay, right? He's averaging like 5.5 receptions per game. He's averaging like 70 yards per game. Like, that's not great for Amari at 9,400, and a lot of it is injury related. Only a 68% catch rate over that time. 22 receptions on 32 targets. That's not usually what you see out of Amari. He'll usually be hovering around the 75% catch rate, so slightly below average there. He will see Kyle Fuller, who's given up 23 receptions, 316 yards, and 2 touchdowns over the last 6. Look, it's Amari. If he is fully healthy, he's a smash play at this price tag in a fine matchup, but I'm just a little bit worried about his health here. Mitch Trubisky, quarterback, 8,800. This is a nice price point for a quarterback on a showdown slate. He's looked a lot better as of late, but he's also faced the Giants secondary, abysmal. You just saw what Aaron Rodgers and like half a foot of snow did to them. And then he got to face Detroit's secondary, also abysmal, on Thanksgiving. So Trubisky has looked much better as of late. And a lot of that really coming on good matchups the last 2, but also volume. Like, the Bears defense, again, has not been great, nowhere near as good as last year. A lot of that is because the offense has not been great, and you're just putting more pressure on your defense and keeping them on the field more, so they're going to give up bigger plays and more points. 40.7 pass attempts per game for Mitch Trubisky over the last 3 weeks. That is pretty good volume. I think just 8,800 is too hard to pass up for a price point. He's just easy to fit into your lineups. And look, he doesn't have to break the slate. If he has 17 points as a quarterback here, it's like a below average, around an average performance And at that price point of 8,800 on the slate, I don't think many other people are going to score 17 plus anywhere near that range. So he is going to probably be viable more times than not. In play at this price point, and it's hard not to like him. Dallas has been struggling over the last month or so in their secondary. So $8,800 Mitch definitely in play. I might lean to get more Mitch than Dak for $2,000 less, believe it or not. David Montgomery, I lean not to play him. I'll put him as a maybe just because, again, he's a running back who is going to get red zone work and has 2 touchdown upside. So on a showdown slate, that has to be in play. But man, is he priced up. He has a really big negative run blocking advantage this week, so a below average matchup against this defensive line of the Dallas Cowboys. He's a 3-point underdog, albeit at home, but still an underdog there, so that doesn't benefit him as well as, or anywhere near to him being a favorite. And then you get Dallas that is not struggling as much against these types of running backs. David Montgomery not as versatile as like a Tariq Cohen or some of the other running backs like Aaron Jones and Alvin Kamara and Zeke or in Saquon, guys like that. Some of them that they played this year, like Jones and Saquon, have bigger games against them. So, yeah, the Cowboys they struggle much more against those versatile running backs. David Montgomery's too expensive. He should be like a $6,800, $6,500 player on this slate, in my opinion. The only issue is if he backs his way into 2 rushing touchdowns because he'll get all the goal line work, then he has a nice day. So it's hard to full fade him, or at least recommending doing that. I lean not to play him if you're playing like 1 to 3 lineups, but if you're playing like 10 to 15, it's hard to not want to at least have him in a few of those. His counterpart in the backfield for $1,000 less is Tariq Cohen, who is not seeing a ton of volume. Like David Montgomery seeing about 15, 16 opportunities per game. He'll see about a target and a half to 2 targets per game and 14 and a half to 15 carries per game. Whereas, and that's very much skewed from 1 week where he saw like 2 carries and week 1 where he saw like 4 carries. So it's very much so around 16 to 18 touches per game for Montgomery, which again is fine for usage, but just this matchup and the price point, maybe not as much. On Tariq Cohen, though, 24.8 routes run per game, only 10.25 touches per game over the last month, so you're paying $6,600, a pretty steep price point for probably more times than not in this matchup, like as an underdog, 12 touches, which is fine because you might get 6, 7 of them out of the receiving game on a good day. So I do think he's viable because of that pass catching role. Let's just say he carries the ball 6 times for 25 yards, but he ends up catching 5 passes for 55 yards. Having a 13-point performance at $6,600 might be needed, and that's not the craziest of stat lines, right? So if you're going to get 10 to 15 touches out of this guy on a 1-game slate, and he does have that big play upside, he's definitely in play. He's similar to his teammate, though, in the backfield, David Montgomery, that I don't have a ton of interest in these guys at these price points. They're very loosely in play for me. Jason Witten, $5,600. Right now, he's running 33.8 routes per week over the last month of the season. He's just not leaving the field. He has a tough matchup against Clinton-Dix, who over the last 6 games in coverage has only allowed 9 receptions for 67 yards and a touchdown. Very good for safety against most tight ends. It's actually close to being outstanding. But Witten runs a lot of shorter routes, so that doesn't really impact him getting just kind of shut down downfield by and you're just banking on touchdowns here. If Witten does his average 4 receptions for 40 yards, he's probably not doing much for you. He's overpriced at that point. He's similar to giving you the production of a kicker, but he's like $2,000 more or $1,800 more expensive than these kickers. You need a touchdown there, which keeps him in play because he's running so many routes. Cowboys defense at $4,400. Look, Chicago has the 3rd worst pass blocking advantage on the slate. Minus 24% is their pass blocking advantage. Negative 24% compared to the average matchup. So Dallas should be able to get a ton of pressure on Mitch. If he's going to throw a ton of times like he has been, 30 or closer to 40 plus times per game right now, 40.7 over the last 3, and Mitch is going to face pressure, he might back himself into some mistakes. I do like Dallas at $4,400. Seems too cheap. Same thing I always say for these kickers. $3,800 Brett Maher, the Dallas kicker. Eddie Pinheiro, the Chicago kicker, at $3,600. I would recommend just rostering one of them at most. That does not mean you should have one in every lineup. It means when you do play a kicker, you probably should just exit out playing another kicker. If you're using an optimizer, you just set a rule that says at most 1 kicker from this game, which means that you don't have to have any, but you would only have 1 at most. If you're playing both, it just limits your upside tremendously, in my opinion, especially in windy Chicago in a cold game at night. Javon Wims, if there's no Taylor Gabriel, $3,200, he should run a lot of routes. He should run around 30 routes, or if not a little bit more than that. He's likely to see Byron Jones, who on paper is Dallas's best cornerback. Byron Jones plays 93% of his snaps on the right side of the field, which is why they probably just elect to get Allen Robinson away from him, put Robinson in the slot for 40% of his routes, and then on the outside against Awuzie, which leaves just Javon Wims having to run up against Byron Jones for most of this one. It's still a good price tag for the usage of potentially 30 routes in 4 or 5 targets, so I don't think he's out of play. Just know that you should temper your expectations because Byron Jones can easily shut down Javon Wims for 1 to 2 receptions for like 20 to 30 yards at most. And also Javon Wims is not like $200 or $1,600 on the slate. He's $3,200. So he's priced like the kickers. So if he doesn't get you 8 points, he's not outscoring those kickers. Now he has the upside to score a touchdown and wildly outscore them, but you're probably needing Javon Wims to have 3 receptions for 50 or 60 yards or 4 receptions for 40 or 50 yards to outscore these kickers. And I'm not too sure he actually puts those numbers up against Byron Jones. And now some of my no's that some people might like. Randall Cobb at 6,400. If you're going to play a ton of lineups, definitely you should have him in your player pool. If I'm recommending to the people watching this, most people playing 10 or less lineups in a showdown slate, I would recommend not playing him in really most or any of them. It's a difficult matchup against Buster Skrine in the slot, who's been one of the better slot cornerbacks this year. And look, he's priced in the 6K range where his upside is just not as much there running out of the slot as it is for some other players close to him, like Anthony Miller for $600 more, who's also running on the slot but will run on the outside and is much more usage as the number 2 in his passing game, as opposed to Randall Cobb, who, in my opinion, is probably at best the number 3, if not the number 4 behind Zeke, if not like 4A, 4B with Jason Witten, especially when they get to the red zone. So Cobb definitely can pick up a 5-reception game here. It's just more times than not, he'll pick up those extra yardage and close to a 90 to 100-yard game when there's some busted plays like you've seen 2 times this year by the defense. 6,400 is a lot to pay, hoping for some sort of huge game out of Randall Cobb here, in my opinion, in a tough matchup. Taylor Gabriel, I just have as a no right now just due to injury. I don't expect him to play, but we shall see. Tony Pollard, he's 2,600. I love the guy's talent, but 10 total carries over the last 4 games. So you're getting 2 carries per game, pretty much 2.5 carries per game. I don't love that at all. He's just way too expensive right now. Blake Jarwin's running about 12.8 routes per week over the last month. He's seeing 3.3 targets, 2.5 receptions, 24.8 receiving yards, which accumulates to 5 fantasy points per game over the last month. What you're banking on out of Blake Jarwin if you play him is a touchdown. I don't want to bet my money on that, but if you're playing a lot of lineups, you should have some Blake Jarwin because there's a chance he could be a guy who just scores a touchdown this week and be needed at 2,200. Jesper Horsted, he scored a touchdown on Thanksgiving, an 18-yard touchdown reception in the back of the end zone. Really nice catch, but in the 2 games without Ben Braunector that Horsted has played, he's only ran 9 routes. He's not going to run a lot of routes. He'll be active in the red zone, which is good, but 5 routes last week, ends up catching that touchdown for 18 yards on his only target. He's just too expensive for $2,000. Even if Braunector doesn't play, I don't expect him to run anywhere near anything more than like 6 to 8 to 10 routes at most. Tavon Austin, $1,200. Very similar analysis to Blake Jarwin here. Dallas runs a very tight 3 wide receiver rotation with Cobb in the slot and with Gallup and Amari on the outsides. Austin has upside if you do get a guy like Amari to get hurt again, which he has been, so there's some there. You're going to get Tavon Austin hovering around 15 to 20 offensive snaps, and he'll run 10 routes per week, but that's a little bit skewed up because Amari has been hurt. So more times than not, Austin's going to run 8 routes per week, so you're praying for a deep touchdown at $1,200 because if Austin catches the ball for 10 yards, he's not doing anything for you. Those 2 points are not winning you a tournament at $1,200. If he catches 2 balls for 20 yards, those 4 points probably aren't winning you a tournament at $1,200. So you need the touchdown out of him. You need like the 40 or 50 yard reception. I'm just not going to bet on it. I prefer playing Blake Jarwin, who's actually seeing targets, 3 a game, as opposed to Austin, who's lucky if he sees 1 in the game. Ben Braunector still in the concussion protocol. If he does play at $800, he'll probably run 30 routes. That's what he's been playing, or been running. So I do like him at $800 if he does play. Probably one of the better plays in that cheap range. Cordero Patterson has not seen a target in the last 4 games. At best, you're lucky to get like 1 rushing attempt out of him in this one. He's playing a lot of special teams as the primary kickoff returner. No interest there. So that's it. That is the Thursday Night Football slate. A couple $100,000 at first. Dallas Cowboys, Chicago Bears. Please do drop down below. $5,000 or below on this slate. Who is your favorite value play of the night? It could be somebody at $800 like Ben Braunector if he suits up. It can be right around those kickers range. Who is it? Let me know. Leave your Twitter or PayPal or a way for me to contact you. You have to be a subscriber. You have to like the video. If you're listening on the audio version, you have to leave a review, 5 stars, hopefully, if you enjoy this, over on the podcast to enter into the chance to win that $25 PayPal. We'll shoot it your way and announce the winner on Friday's video. Be sure to check out drafters.com. We'll have some leagues later in the week where you can enter in with me as well. We'll draft. I'll get a time out there live on screen for about 15 or 20 minutes towards the end of one of our Q&As. So you can check that out as well. You get a 100% deposit bonus. 100%, not 25, not 50 like a lot of places. 100%. You enter up to $50. You use the promo code SAL100. That is SAL100 to get an extra 100% deposit bonus on drafters.com. You enter $50, you'll get an extra 50. $10, you'll get an extra $10 just for free, just for using that code. So check it out if you are interested. Follow me on social medias at SalVetriDFS on Twitter, SalVetri over on the Instagram streets. I appreciate each and every one of you continuing to tune into these podcasts and YouTube videos. You all rock. Thank you so much for allowing me to really enjoy creating this content. I love doing it. You all rock. Again, have a great rest of your day. Best of luck on this Showdown slate. Peace out, gang. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed that video. Above my head, if you're not already subscribed to this channel, I do ask you if you can please hit that subscribe button. It helps me out a good amount to reach more people. You can also follow me on Twitter. That's over there. Right in the corner is my @SalVetriDFS Twitter. And then above, you'll find my Patreon link. You can click on that if you want more exclusive content for me. Or a video is going to pop up, so why don't you check that one out as well. I think it's going to be beneficial for you. Thank you so much again for tuning in, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.